To get to the transmission mount bracket, you need to first remove the airbox. So you want to remove the mass airflow sensor. And with the flathead, you want to loosen up the screw, this hose, and you want to pry it off. I find it easier to remove the air intake hose completely at the throttle body as well as at the airbox. That way it's out of your way and you're not fighting with it while you're doing this job. Alright, so next thing you just got to lift this up. And there's your access to your transmission mount. Now that you have the transmission mount completely exposed, it's going to be a 21mm socket for this bolt and 15mm sockets for these 4 bolts. Now I have the transmission supported with a jack underneath so that the transmission won't drop, and I'm going to take out this center bolt first, which is the 21mm. Next I'm switching to my 15mm and I'm going to take off the remaining bolts. Now that I have all the bolts out, you can just pull this thing on out. As you saw when I was removing the transmission mount, the transmission shifted just a little bit. That's nothing to worry about because you can very easily move the bolt where the transmission's at just by pushing on the engine a little bit. So what we're going to do next is make sure that this key mark right here is going to line up with that. That'll ensure that our mount goes on correctly. Now that it does, I'm just going to set this on into place. Try to line it up with the bulb hole first. Now I got that lined up. Just push on the transmission until I can get this thing perfect. Now I'm just going to reattach these nuts. Make sure it's lined up. I'm just going to keep them nice and loose until the very end. When I know it's perfectly centered, then I will tighten it down to hold it into place. Alright, so now that I got these 2 nuts on there pretty good, they're still loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ratchet on there, push the transmission into the position that I need it to be in, and then I'm going to tighten it down. That'll actually hold the bracket where it needs to be. And I'm using the gaps underneath these nuts right here to know where the center point is. Now that that's on there, the only other time I'll have to pry on the engine to move the transmission is for the 21mm bolt. Alright, now that bolt's on there, I'm just going to push the transmission. You can see it's moving. And then ratchet this down the rest of the way. It's very easy to tell if you're centered just by looking down on the transmission mount. Alright, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all these bolts are nice and tight, and then we'll start reassembling. Alright, so the next thing that you want to do is reinstall the airbox. Now the one thing you want to make sure that you do, once you reinstall the airbox, ensure that you plug back in this hose and the cable into the mass airflow sensor. Alright, so now that the airbox is in, just start reconnecting. Last thing you need to do is reattach the air hose, and this job is complete.